Okay, so when I think of eLDee, I think of a lot of the huge songs you've made that kind of ushered me to my adolescence and my early 20s and late teens.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the Big Boy record when that song came out. I was like, okay, this is because I'm big on hip hop, but hearing it in a Nigerian element is something that was new to me.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us the story of how that record came about?
I was in my apartment in Marietta.
Okay.
I came up with the first version of it,
Mm-hmm.
which was I'm a fine boy. Actually, I'll be fine boy.
Right.
That's what it was.
Uh-huh.
I think first time I played it for someone, they're like, damn, yo, this is like, well, where is your mind? Like, and so I decided to switch it up, and then I did a rap version,
Mm-hmm.
which was with Ruckus, Chitty Bang, who was
Mhm.
Proto at the time, and Iceberg Slim. They were rappers on the state side.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the rap version with them, and then I played that for a couple of friends, and they were like, yeah, it's really, really dope. This is a dope, hip hop record. But it
Mhm.
feels so American because everyone that was on it was, very American in their delivery.
Right.
So when I was talking to Banky one time,
Mm-hmm.
Banky had just moved to Nigeria at this point.
Oh, from the States?
From the States.
Okay.
So I was talking to Banky one time, I was like, yo, I have this record, and blah, blah, blah. And Banky's like, ooh. It's like, yo, this is this one.
Right.
So I was like, oh, word? And he was like, yeah, man. And plus, we were working on Banky's album at the time. Banky was working on the W Experience, I think.
Okay.
Was it the W Experience? Yes,
Mm-hmm.
W Experience. So we're at his place. So I actually moved my studio to his house in Omole.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were working on, all the songs or whatever. So he was like, yo, this particular one is the one. This one's going to go.
Okay.
So then he put a verse on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then this was around the time, and all of this is happening over months.
Right.
And then came the time, close to the time when my wife and I were getting married, right? So we're about to do the wedding and we're hanging out, and Olu Maintain shows up. And Olu Maintain actually came because I was trying to get him to help me have some guy make my wedding suit.
Oh, wow.
So he shows up, and I'm just playing him a bunch of stuff, and I play him. He was like, whoa. He's like, yo, I need to get on this record as well.
Right.
So he recorded another ghostwriting situation, records,
Right.
and then I wasn't even going to put it out, but I made the mistake of giving Olu Maintain a copy of it.
Oh, okay.
And I think the following day someone called me and they're like, yo, we heard your new songs. And I was like, wait, it's not even ready.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even know what we're going to do with it, blah, 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 blah. So we had to sort of put it out.
Mm-hmm.
So it was okay, I had to put this song out because it felt like it was about to leak.
Right.
Which is why the rap version, which was the original version, ended up being on the album.
Gotcha.
Because what I actually really wanted to do was to put out the rap version first,
Mm-hmm.
and then put the one that everyone knew out as the remix.
Mm.
Unfortunately, we had to put out the remix first.
Yeah.
Because obviously it was about to leak. Some DJs already had it.
Oh, man.
It was about to already start playing on the radio.
Right.
Because everyone was excited, and so that sort of changed the trajectory of it. But that's the Big Boy story.
Okay.
And part of the reason we never shot a video
Mm-hmm.
is because of that controversy of it starting that way and it just creating bad blood, and
Yeah. So, and I think that's one of the differences between, I'm not an artist in the Nigerian music industry or anything like that, but I feel like here in the States, or probably in the UK or wherever you are, when someone gets a copy of a song that they're maybe not supposed to have or wasn't intended to be, made public, then lawyers can come up like, hey, hold on.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that wasn't the case.
It wasn't the case, but it was even more sinister, and I don't know if I've said this publicly before, but what I found out the day after was there were already copies of it, but what it said on the CD was Olu Maintain featuring eLDee and Banky W. And I was like, well, hold on a second. First of all.
Wow, no, that's...
First of all. So it was really, really, it was not a good situation.
Yeah.
Right? So for that reason, it just started off on a really horrible note.
Mm-hmm.
If I could have retracted it, I would have pulled that version back and redone it, but it was already out.
Yeah.
I mean, DJs already had it.
Yeah.
CDs were already printed.
Yeah.
So I had to sort of get ahead of it, which is why, you know, it would be the way. And like you said, if it was, you know, if Nayankina season this is one time, radio stations, everybody stops, and then, you know, we can release it properly. But, yeah, that wasn't...
is that I'm sure, but like, how common is that back then at that time?
It's very
even now?
It's quite common.
Wow.
It's quite common that, and I'm sure if you go online and look it up, you'll see plenty of stories like that. I think I remember there was a Rema one a couple of years back where he was mad about someone putting out something without his permission. Like, it happens all the time. And I don't know the details of that particular case, so I'm not speaking on that. But I'm saying I've heard many scenarios where people are like, oh, I didn't intend for this to be released, but then it gets put out there, and somehow it messes with either whatever your promo strategy is or whatever. But we were fluid at the time, fluid enough to be able to, well, agile, I would say, enough to be able to say, okay, you know what? Since this is already kind of running down this road, let's just follow it and do this. My focus at the time was to do Bossy Bamba Beat video, do my promo towards the end of the year, put out the rap version, and then do this remix version about 6 months later. But we had to put it out that November, which kind of messed with our whole plan. But thankfully, it caught on fire. Yeah.
Has there ever been a situation where you've had to call an artist, a group, a talent, or a management team and say, hey, look, this is going to get real bad for you if you don't, you know, stop?
If you don't stop?
Yeah.
Yes. So I didn't have to call. I had people make the call.
Sure.
Right? There was a Big Go version of Big Boy that made it to the radio, and I was like, yo, we didn't sanction this. Like, we could have. Right? I'm not going to do a female version, right?
Right.
We could do this and do it properly, but you know, oh nah, come on, it's just an upcoming artist, just help them. And I'm like, yeah, I get that part.
Right.
I'm the guy who's trying to promote everybody, right? But let's just do it right. Let's do it properly. Like, don't let the first time I hear it not be on the radio.
Right.
Like, just play it to me. What's the worst that can happen?
Exactly.
I'll say no. What's the worst?
And that's, I mean, you may not be able to answer this, but I'm curious as to, like you said, why is this so common? It seems as if, and this is my personal gripe with the Nigerian music industry in general. There seems to be sometimes, I don't know, maybe from the outside looking in, like a lack of respect from artists, or maybe competition, or maybe it's a business thing, or like, why do we do this to each other?
It's desperation. It's just desperation. It's people thinking, man, I have an opportunity. Let me just run with this, and what's the worst that can happen? People get upset, and then they'll get upset, and that's it, right? And unfortunately, I've seen some of those situations go really bad, but it's just, it's not necessary.
Right.
Like, and the thing about it too is I feel like people who do that are deep down, they're not very creative. Because if you are very creative, you won't feel the need to sort of ride somebody else's wave. You can always create something.
True.
You know, and to be very clear, this is not like an attack on anything on Olu Maintain at all.
Of course, no, of course.
We're cool, you know, we're
right.
But that is the story. That's exactly what happened. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Now, I believe my brother said that there was a remix with Yung Joc.
Yes.
Okay. He played it for me. It was a while ago. But how did that happen? How did that come together?
So Joc was in Nigeria. He did a show. I think he was at the Calabar Carnival, maybe. Okay. But he did a show and he was in Calabar.
Wow.
And the record played while he was in the club, and he saw the reaction, and so he asked, he's like, "Who is this?
Right.
What is this?"
Right.
And so when I came back to Atlanta, people in Atlanta had hit me up and say, "Oh, a friend of mine at the time, Nigerian gentleman, he lived in Atlanta too, so he knew a lot of these folks. I forget his name now. Damn it. I want to give him his credit for this moment.
Right.
But he was the one that facilitated the meeting and the session. Okay. Actually, no. DJ Trauma facilitated the session. So I knew DJ Trauma. And DJ Trauma at the time was touring with, I don't remember who he was touring. And so they were doing shows with Joc. And so he basically facilitated the session. Right. And so we went into the session, and I mean, it happened, and like, Joc didn't write anything down. That was quite impressive.
Yeah, I've heard. I mean, I don't know. I've never met him yet, but anything like that. But
he literally went in.
Yeah.
He did the first 2 lines.
Right.
And then did the next 2 lines.
Wow.
Did the next 2 lines. He didn't write anything down. I was like, oh. I said, okay. I see how y'all do it.
Right.
Well, I don't know about the artists now, but we didn't do that in our time. It was very. We're very deliberate with the lyrics. Right. Just going off the top and still making it sound cohesive like that. So I was quite impressed.
Okay. That's an interesting story for that record, for that background. Another one of my favorites of yours is Otami. I love that song. I remember when it first came out. I've been to a lot of weddings, so we're going to like a wedding. I was driving. I'm a little bit older now. And I played the song, not even thinking, "Oh, my mom is here." If you see the way that my mom was like, "What are you listening to?" But I kid you not, at the wedding they were playing the song and she was dancing to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's one of my favorite songs of yours. How did that song come out?
I was just playing around.
Okay.
I was messing around, and I had a lot of contact with Kwam and he actually is the originator of the hook. Right? And so I added we get do whatever. But I always wanted to sort of sample, do an interpolation of one of his records, and that was the one at the time. I was like, yo. So I did the hook, recorded I hadn't even done the verses or anything, and I went to go meet Uncle Percy, his manager, and I said, "Hi, Mom, check this out, blah blah blah." That, and he listened to it. I was like, I like I'll talk to Aleji, and so got permission, and as soon as I got permission, I was like, "Yo, we need to put this out."
Right.
So then I did the verses and we threw it out there, and it caught on fire. Time was one of my, and this was part of my Is It Your Money project, if I remember.
Yeah.
Correctly. So that was, like I said, the happiest time for me making music. I was just having fun. I'm
biased. That's probably my favorite. But that song just takes me back to a very simple and fun time when I was a lot younger. Nice. But man, that song is legendary. So let me ask you, the music video for Otami and all the other music videos that you've made. What was the process like? Have you filmed all of your music videos in Nigeria? Was some of them here or in London or anywhere? Or?
I did a couple here.
Okay.
So I shot Agoyan, I'm Leaving, Bossy Bamba were all shot here in the States. Otami I shot in Nigeria. At Bodhi Lawson Studios in Ikeja.
Oh wow.
And at the time I was shooting all my videos. Didn't feel the need to pay someone to do it because I had the editing tools, I had the cameras, I had everything that I needed. I bought equipment, so I was just like, you know what, I'll shoot my videos. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So in terms of process, right?
Right.
I wasn't really trying to do anything that was grandiose.
Sure.
I just wanted it nice, simple, fun. So most of my videos I would shoot in a set. So Bodhi Lawson had a studio, and we could black out, we could green screen, we could do all of that. So I would go there, and that's pretty much where I shot. That's where I also shot. Matter of fact, I think I shot those 2 videos the same day. I shot Otami and One Day, which is another video that I shot and edited. Edited everything.
So what don't you do?
I mean,
no, I'm kidding.
No, hey, but you know what? No, it's a good question because throughout my career, I found a new challenge to sort of conquer. And you have to understand, when I started doing music in Nigeria, music was not there was no industry.
Right.
There weren't people that could shoot the kind of videos that we wanted. So I had to learn to shoot the video. There weren't people who could mix the music the way we wanted. So I had to learn to mix. Part of the reason why I came to America in the first place is because I felt like I had peaked in Nigeria and I needed to come to an environment where I could learn these things professionally.
Wow.
So when you look at a project like Bossy Bamba, the music video, right? That video, fun fact, first video ever by anyone, period. First music video that was shot on the Red camera. The red camera wasn't official at the time. It wasn't. It was still a prototype. So I was working with a studio called Spitfire here in Atlanta, and they had a prototype of the red camera. It didn't even have a shell. Like, it was just like this weird looking gadget that could only shoot for like 5 minutes at a time.
Right.
They hadn't figured out all of the cooling. It was still pretty, like, prototype stage.
Yeah.
And so I went over there and I saw some footage that they did with it, and I was like, yo, this is going to be revolutionary, because I wanted to shoot on an array. Like, I wanted to shoot our music videos properly. I needed them to look like high production, high value.
Right.
And so the red was like a shortcut. Which is why I was like, oh, yo, we can use this, and it would save us a ton of money. Otherwise, the video would have cost me $60,000. Yeah. So for me, just one challenge after another. It's distribution. Right. We solved that. It's getting online. We solved that. It's building a website. It's putting the music on digital. Did you know that Tribesman is the first Nigerian outside of Fela and anyone who was signed to a major at the time? We were the very first independent artists to have our music on any digital platform through CD Baby. Wow. Yeah. So it was things like that. Yeah. And for me, so shooting a video is just one of the things along the way that I was like, okay, I got to learn how to do this. Right. In order to be able to get us to that next level.
And there's some things that going into the interview, preparing, that I obviously had questions about, but to actually hear the deeper stories and what had to happen for certain songs and music videos and albums to come out. Yeah, it's mind blowing, because I think we all know that Nigerians are talented as a people, not to be proud or anything like that. Right. But you have pioneers. You have people who did it first, or who maybe changed the way things were done so that other people can do it. And man, much credit to you, because that's great. And I believe now you have your Nigerian American Podcast.
Yes.
Okay, so what motivated you to start doing that?
So I was trying to chronicle. I realized that we don't chronicle enough as a culture. Okay. And so a lot of history is lost, and narratives are created after the fact. So I wanted to, it's kind of the reason why I'm doing a podcast like this as well, is an opportunity to tell some of these stories, so that it's captured somewhere. Exactly. So sometime in the future, when we're having conversations about, there's some reference, there's context that can be tapped into, this clear nuance to a lot of the things that happen, right? So I started doing an autobiography. Wow. And so the writer that I spoke with, a professional writer, said, hey, the best way to do this is to tell a bunch of small stories about some of the most interesting things that happened to you from when you were young up until this point. And then what we'll try to do is string your story along, around those little stories. So I recorded the first one, which was the first time I went to New York. Wow. My very first time in America, like, just, after having experienced America from Nigeria for such a long time. And then I landed in New York, and my experience there. And when I played it back for my wife was like, why does it sound like a podcast? And I was like, no, it's not a podcast. This is what I'm supposed to, this is part of my stories. She's like, nah, bro, this sounds like a podcast. Right. In fact, why don't you add this to it and add that to it and add this to it? That's how the podcast came up. So that's why you'll notice, like, the first, I don't know, maybe 10 to 12 episodes are mostly like just personal stories. And then I started to, talk about other things on the podcast, because, we had an audience, and I just figured, hey, this may be an outlet. And wow. So that's how that started.
Well, you brought up autobiography. If you're ever doing a biopic, let me know. I have some camera equipment, I have some production skills, let me know, man, because that would be something that I hope that we're able to do. Yeah. As you said, like, I feel like as Nigerians, we don't really document our history enough compared to other cultures. So, man, if that comes out, man, I'll be in person, and I'll be there to watch that, or to be part of that. So I'm glad that, you started the Nigerian American Podcast. And do you have any other ventures outside of the podcast and music that you want to share, or that, we don't, some of us don't know?
So I don't even think of the podcast as a venture. It's just something that I do for fun. Okay. When I have time, which is why I'm not very consistent with it. Gotcha. So apologies to those who are avid followers. It's just when I have time that I, jump in the studio. I have a studio at home, a podcast recording studio, before people start asking me to record music. which I used to produce that. But what I was doing, I guess over the last decade, was spending a lot of time in IT. I was a consultant for a while, and then I retired from that. Well, before I retired, my wife and I started doing real estate. My wife's been in real estate. And so then she dragged me into real estate, and I did real estate, and we've been doing real estate since.
That's great.
So if there's one thing that I would say that I do now, it's that.
Okay.
Right? We're building a pretty decent sized portfolio.
That's good.
And we're looking to also develop and build, and we're going into commercial real estate development and stuff like that. Just as something, not necessarily, if you're thinking about it from a standpoint of like, building financial capacity, yes, investing and stuff like that. But outside of that, I do the podcast, I travel, I hang with my children, and I spend a lot of time in my garden.
Oh, that's great, man. Okay. For more DXR media content, follow us on our socials. More content's on the way.